Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. And today I have a blackberry margarita, it's about half gone, and we are going to chat about my September reads. In September, I read 8 books, kind of 9. I'm going to talk about one that I finished like October 2nd. It was kind of a disappointing month. So not to spoil the video, but I had a lot of mid books, and I think that's kind of the bounce back when you read a bunch of good books in one month, like I did in August. You're gonna have a month of stinkers. I also seem to read a lot of library books or ebooks. So I read The Honeymoon Crashers, and this is by Christina Lauren. It is audiobook only. I got it from my library. It's a new release, and this is a sequel to The Unhoneymooners, which I just read in June or July, and it was the perfect little vacation rom-com, and the sequel was the same. It was cute and fun. I loved seeing Amy, our main character from the first book, sister, kind of come into her own and have a story. The romance felt like nice and low stakes. It wasn't like do or die. It was just sweet, cozy. And in this story, Olive and Ethan from the first book, spoilers, are getting married, and they want to elope to Hawaii where they met. And Amy, Olive's twin, says, okay, you can go to Hawaii, but the whole family is gonna come and I'm gonna plan your wedding. And so it's very cute, very like last minute, getting the wedding ready, and it was just sweet and fun, and the romance was cute. Like there wasn't like this big like miscommunication, there wasn't this big climax reveal, third party breakup, because it is kind of a novella audiobook. And the audiobook was like fully acted. It had like background sounds of like the beach in Hawaii, and it was a fun, cute little vacation read. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. If you have been watching my channel, you know I love this author, but her adult romances and me, we're still on the fence. We're still figuring each other out. And this is kind of the same. I thought it was cute. It had an interesting plot. This is about a girl who inherits a magical apartment in New York, and her aunt is the one who gives her the apartment. Her aunt has passed away recently. In this apartment, it's kind of got its own little time slip. So it will slip 7 years in the past. And so our main character, Clementine, meets this man who is from 7 years in the past, and they have a flirtation. So it has this like high interesting concept, and I liked the characters. I liked Clementine. I loved the hero in this, the love interest, Ewan. I think I just wanted more. Like I always want more from Ashley Poston's romances. They had good chemistry, but the romance felt kind of underdeveloped, and there's things happening. It's kind of 2 timelines, right? Because when she's in the apartment, it's 7 years in the past, and when she's in the future, she's dealing with this work issue and her career, and kind of still dealing with the grief of losing her aunt. And I gave it 4 stars in the end. I think it was decent. Of course, I'm gonna read every book Ashley Poston writes, but I just wish there had been more. I did like it more than The Dead Romantics, I'll give it that. And I'm gonna put spoilers on the screen now because I just have to talk about the ending of this, right? Well, not even the ending, but just, I don't want to spoil anything for other people, so spoilers now. So the reason I say it takes place in 2 timelines is because Clementine is in the apartment with Ewan in the past, and then she meets him in the future around this same time. So she's like flirting with him in the past, and he knows everything that happened in the apartment between them. So it's really doing a mind twisty thing where he in the future knows what happened and knows what their last moments together were, and like the kind of fallout. I thought it was going to be more dramatic, that like she said something mean or they fought or whatever, and then now they're just seeing each other 7 years later, and it is happening in her time and he knows it. But it wasn't like that. It was just kind of sweet, and so then he's also kind of wooing her in the present, and he has like changed a lot. He's a lot more serious, a lot more professional, and I just I get it. People can change a lot in 7 years, and kind of the theme of this, and it's on the back, that like love is never a matter of time, but of timing. And I think that's a really interesting take for a romance. But like he changed so much in 7 years, and we didn't get to see any of that growth or not growth. And so I wanted a little more explanation. You know, they talk a bit about what happened to him in those 7 years, but not a lot, and we don't really get a ton of that. And then the climax whiffed it so hard. Okay, so this is where real big spoilers come in. So our main character's aunt committed suicide, okay? And it's tragic and sad, and this book deals a lot with grief. You have a time traveling apartment, right? 7 years in the past. Guess what? Guess what? 7 years in the past, her aunt is still alive, right? So you kind of have this idea that, oh, you know, it's a time traveling apartment, like maybe she will get to see her aunt, because that's part of her time in the past, because like she is existing in a time where somewhere out in the world her aunt still lives. And this is such an interesting thing about grief and like going back, and just it's fascinating. And there is a moment where you know her aunt is going to show up soon, and the door opens, and you like our main character had this revelation of something, some like emotional thing, and then she gets to see her aunt, and the door opens and it cutscenes. Like, are you kidding me? First of all, where's the catharsis? Where's the catharsis, Ashley Poston? No. Second of all, as someone dealing with grief right now, the absolute, like, you have the opportunity in this book to give your character the dream of like one last conversation, and you're not going to give the reader and your character that scene? Ashley, ma'am, please. So yeah, I was pretty like mad about that, and that's why this is 4 stars. I actually probably should dip it a little lower because of the fucking L, dude, the freaking whiff. Anyway, spoilers off my high horse. I gave this 4 stars. I have some issues with it. Then I read Page Boy by Elliot Page, and I don't know what it is with me and celebrity memoirs this year. I am just tearing through them. I'm gonna have to read the Jeanette McCurdy one, but I have 2 hot takes for this. I thought it was okay. I thought it was interesting. I thought Elliot Page was doing some sort of deep, thematic, smart things, but I also think that, here's my hot take, I think he should have used a ghostwriter, or at least collaborated with a more seasoned author, because the themes that he is playing with are really intelligent and interesting, right? We've got themes of like nature and being one with nature, and what the effect that has on the soul, and like the history of place and how violence writes itself on a place or on a body. And we've got this theme of like the body knowing things that the mind doesn't, and there's really a like divorce between his mind and his body for a lot of the book. And then taking that mind versus body thing and putting it on like internal versus society, and especially as an actor, how your perception is not the perception that, you know, society has of you. Just absolutely fascinating themes, but they weren't executed very well. It was clumsy and difficult to understand. Like, I could see where they were trying to go, but I just don't think it landed. And so I kind of think they should have used a ghostwriter, because I think someone with more knowledge, more skill, more experience as a writer could have probably helped him execute his vision to his full potential. I think that this memoir, I guess I don't know who it's for. I think it's for young trans people, and the idea that if you live your authentic like self, if you figure yourself out and get there, it will get better, and it does feel better to just do you. I don't know how it sits in this like celebrity memoir sphere, and what like what it was trying to say to its audience. Like, I get the themes that it's playing with, but why are people picking it up? Are people picking it up to get a better sense of what it was like to film Juno and The Umbrella Academy and the, indie movies that he was in, as well as something like Inception? Like, we don't get a ton of behind the scenes stuff, which I'm fine with. I didn't pick it up for that. But I just wonder if people are going to be disappointed because you don't get much of that. We do get a lot about his childhood, so that if you're reading for getting to know Elliot Page better, I think you would get what you want. And I have probably another hot take. I think he should have waited a little longer to write this book. I think he should have sat on it a little longer, because the reflection element of a memoir, I didn't get as much of that as I wanted. We get a lot of recounting what happened and how they felt, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of self-reflection in this book. Like, there was a little bit, there was enough, but not enough for me, I guess. He, at the end of the book, is writing about writing the book after he has had top surgery. And I just feel like it was probably too soon or too raw for him to really delve into how this affects him. I just feel like it was too soon for what I was interested in reading about. Does that make sense? I don't know. I did like the ending. I liked the way it ended. It's kind of dark and sad. He's gone through a lot of stuff, going through all of these awful things while also, fighting yourself. I gave it 3 stars. I think it was decent. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate it, but it wasn't perfect for me, and I think it could have been better if we added a ghostwriter or collaborator and they waited another year or two to finish out the book. Like, they could have started writing it, but just give it more time. And then 2 other things. So I saw a lot of Goodreads reviewers mention that it talks about shitting a lot, and it kind of does. So that's a thing. If bodily stuff squeaks you out, there's a lot of bodily fluids, bodily talk in this book. And then, not to compare it to Paris Hilton, but I'm going to, because that's the other big celebrity memoir I have read this year. That's why I think the ghostwriter thing came to mind, because Paris Hilton did have a ghostwriter, and I think having someone to collaborate with and talk through things about can bring forward more ideas or clearer ideas, or make you understand yourself more. And so if he had had someone to collaborate with on the book and the writing, I just feel like it could have been better. There's so much raw talent there, and I feel like someone else could have helped shape it, And the reflection in the Paris Hilton memoir is a lot clearer, but I also think her purpose in that book was a lot clearer. So, I don't know. Interesting things. I read Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber. This is a family drama where we have Anna Kate moving back to a small hometown of Wicklow because her Granny Z has died and left her the Blackbird Cafe. So Anna Kate's mother left town because of a car crash, and this one family really made it horrible. They basically blamed her for the car crash, said she killed their son. Now that Anna Kate's back, that family still has beef with her, but also she's related to them, so it gets messy. And it wasn't as magical as I hoped. There was definitely a magical element with the blackbirds, and then there was this cat that led people on adventures, so I liked the cat. But as I was writing my notes for this book, I was already starting to confuse it with The Book Charmer, because it also has small town, new person, and I just feel like this didn't stand out to me. I did listen to the audiobook, that could contribute to it, but I also listened to the audiobook for The Book Charmer, and that one is way clearer in my mind, and I really enjoyed that more. I couldn't even tell you what the romance was in here. Again, multiple car crashes in the past. How bad are these drivers? So I gave this 3 stars, and I don't know if I will read anything else by Heather Weber. I don't think I really care. Gonna take a margarita break. So sidebar, I am like kind of interested in making cocktails. Like, I'm not a huge drinker, but I think making cocktails is really fun. And I've tried to make a desert pear margarita and it just tastes funky every time. And I think with this, I figured it out. And I think what I figured out is I'm using the wrong tequila. I have a grapefruit and hibiscus tequila, which is really good. It's perfect for a Paloma. But you know what it's not perfect for? It's not perfect for a blackberry margarita or a desert pear margarita because the grapefruit and hibiscus just gives it this like weird tang. And I thought it was because I was using really cheap triple sec, but I actually don't think it was the triple sec. I figured that out. Yay. Then I read my first paranormal cozy, A Spell for Trouble by Esme Addison. And you know what? It was okay. It involves mermaids, which I love, and this is about a woman who was kind of estranged from her family. Her mother didn't want her to hang out with them because that's the magical side of her family. But now her mother has died and her father, like, I don't know, he wasn't part of the book. So she goes to live with her aunt and cousins. They teach her about her history and the family history. And so it has mermaids and witches, and it plays with the mythology of the Mermaid of Warsaw, which I have heard of. I thought that was really fun, but for some reason I like wasn't gripped by the story. Like, I just kind of listened to it on audio and passively like took it in. I thought the kind of love triangle was okay. Once again, we have a romance with a cop, but also the cop was kind of a dick. The love triangle was between her, this cop, and another male witch who like owned a company that could have been involved in the murder that happened. Also, I'm worried that paranormal cozies are not for me because the mystery feels either too easy or there are all these other elements. Like, I feel like part of the fun of a cozy and like almost any mystery is trying to solve the mystery and like figuring out the clues. But when they can do magic, they like did a magic spell to try and figure out, you know, who did the murder. And like, of course, the person who had done it did a cloaking spell. So then you were like, oh my God, the person who did it is a witch. And at that point, it's like, well, you can just make anything up. You could just do anything. So the mystery feels more contrived somehow than a normal cozy. So I gave A Spell for Trouble 3 stars, and I might read the second one because there are only 2 so far in this series, and I can get it on audio from my library. So I might just like read it eventually. And I read The Sacrifice, getting into the spooky season, kind of a bridge between summer and spooky. And this is by Rin Chapeko, and it was creepy. It's very atmospheric. I listened to the audiobook for this as well. Maybe that's why I feel the mystery elements or the spooky element was a little muddled. Like, I didn't fully understand how everything connected. This is about a film crew from Hollywood, and they are filming like a true crime documentary scary show about this island where people have made sacrifices before. There was supposedly a cult, a plane crashed nearby, and none of the bodies were found. So just like lots of spooky things. They meet our main character Alon, who becomes their unofficial tour guide, and he's really the only one who deals with this island, so he is like a local guide. I might have to just read this again because there was a lot of good stuff happening and it was very creepy. A sinkhole appears in the first bit with like a mummified corpse, and then people start seeing visions and hearing things. It was good and it was scary. So there's a little like phrase and maybe kind of song that goes with this. And it says like, the first to feed, the second to seed, the third to wear, the fourth to birth, the fifth to serve, the sixth to lure, the seventh to consume, the last to wake. And it's all about like waking this ancient god who will remake the world. And I just wanted more exploration about like what these 8 things, these 8 sacrifices, these 8 people, like what that meant. But there was like a little bit of a twist toward the end that I was not expecting, and I liked it. And I liked the soft like YA romance because this is YA. I think it's worth a quick read if you're in the mood for something spooky but also tropical, and I give it 4 stars. Then I read a doozy, Sundial by Catriona Ward. I also listened to this on audio, just a lot of audiobooks, and I loved The Last House on Needless Street last year. I loved this a lot less. So this is about Rob. She is kind of afraid of her daughter and takes her to her family home in the desert to have a talk with her about their family history and explain why she should be nice to her sister. And there is all this tension because we get both Rob's point of view and her daughter Callie's point of view. And Callie at some point starts to think, like, why are we here? Why are we isolated? Why did she bring me here without dad, without this? And like, there's a lot of tension there. And then we also get the past of Rob telling Callie about how she grew up at Sundial, which is what they call the house, or it should be a compound really, because it was used for science back in the day. I don't want to spoil anything, so it was uncomfortable, much like Last House on Needless Street, but I think this was uncomfortable in a different way. I also think the themes and the ideas that this book is exploring don't really jive with me, because it's kind of exploring like nature versus nurture and family bonds and what we owe our parents, what we owe our children, motherhood, expectations. Like, there's a lot about motherhood and pregnancy, and it's also about sisterhood. And there were parts of this book that I just didn't understand why they were included. There's this almost multimedia element of these stories that Rob is writing. So you've got Rob chapters, Callie chapters, and then these like Arrowwood. And I really didn't understand why the Arrowwood chapters were there. So this might be something that I need to read in book format to really understand, because the audiobook was not getting me there. So I kind of struggled with what to rate this, because I do think the ending is surprising. I think I settled on a 3.5, rounding up to 4 stars. This is the book that I read. It's pretty chunk. This is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab, and this is the third in the Gathering of Magic, Shades of Magic series. The first book in the newest trilogy just came out last month, I don't know. I figured out something about V.E. Schwab's writing. So it's not that her characters aren't good, because I do like most of the characters in this. It's not that the plot isn't good, because I think the plot is well done. I think the thing is the writing, because it's very clear that this is a myth being told. This is a legend being told. It kind of zooms the lens out on the story to give you an overview of what happens. And so there were several scenes in here that could have made me cry, but didn't, because of the distance in the writing. And I don't know if that's true of her other books. I think it's true of this series though, the whole series. That was my issue with it. We're too distant from the characters. So this series is about magic and these multiple Londons across the universe. So you've got Red London and White London and Grey London, and then a mythical Black London. And then we follow a couple of the magicians, or the magician, Kel, who can travel between these worlds and his adventures and meeting other people in these worlds. In the first book, an item from the mythical Black London falls into Kel's hands, and that kind of sets off the chain of events. I did like the series overall, and I'm giving this 4 stars. I think this is the highest of the 3, and I'm interested in the new series. And finally, the last book, I finished it October 2nd, maybe the 3rd, but I'm going to talk about it now, and that is The Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. And I did listen to this on audio. It was gothic, it was atmospheric, it was spooky, but not all of the elements came together for me, I think. This is another one that's told in a very fairy tale-esque way, and I think that distance and that fairy tale-ness, it definitely affected how I feel about it. I don't know which way, but it did. This follows the bridegroom, that's all he's called, and he meets one of our main characters, Indigo. They fall in love pretty quickly, get married, and her stipulation for their marriage is, you cannot learn about my past. You cannot ask about my past. I am who I am now, and that's what you have to take. And for a long time, he's satisfied with that. And it's very much, they play out these like myths together. And then her like aunt is dying, and they have to go back to her family home. And he goes with her and starts poking around, figuring out her past. And then we have other chapters that are in a different point of view. I feel like maybe I'm not going to tell you who the point of view is just because it's not a spoiler, but it is kind of a spoiler. So we do get another point of view in this, and I liked it. I liked the dual timeline story. We have, you know, the house that they go back to where the aunt is dying. We have like spooky vibes there. The house is talked about as its own character, as if it's alive. And so we're kind of questioning like, okay, is the house doing this? Are other characters doing this? Why is the bridegroom getting these creepy things? Like, what's happening? Why is Indigo pulling away? So it was good, and the writing is beautiful. The lyrical writing, gorgeous. But I also don't know if I fully got what Roshani Chakshi was going for, you know? This book is vibes, okay? So if you like spooky gothic vibes and like gray moral characters and maybe potentially toxic relationships, this might be your jam. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't bad. I liked it. So those were the 9 books I read in September, and a lot of them were on audio because The Conjuring of Light took me forever to read. If you want to see what I will be reading in October, I will link my October TBR down below. And if you want to see more of me, I have a vampire vlog coming out soon. You could subscribe to me. You could like this video if you want, but really, you can do whatever you want. And I'll see you next time.